As the Australian election inches closer and closer, another party we should mention in this series is the Australian Greens Party, their history, their policies, and we will look at the role they're likely to play in the 2025 Australian federal election. The Australian Greens, or simply the Greens, is a left-wing political party that has a deep history with the state of Tasmania. The predecessor of the Greens, the United Tasmania Group, was founded in 1972 in order to advocate for environmental issues such as Lake Pedder and the possibility of the Franklin River being dammed. The UTG was the world's first Green Party and experienced a variety of success and failure in 10 state and federal elections. In 1992, the former successor of the UTG, the Australian Greens, was founded and began to contest in local, state, and federal elections to the present day. The Greens eventually replaced the Australian Democrats as the largest minor party in the 2004 Australian federal election, and has since consolidated its position. As for their policies, the Australian Greens stand for green politics, such as environmentalism, an emphasis on social justice, and grassroots democracy. The Greens have also adhered to progressivism, both for economic and social policies such as pushing for changes like gay marriage, improvements for public housing, and driving the 21st century environmental movement here in Australia. In the 2022 federal election, the Greens were able to obtain their greatest electoral success, picking up 3 seats to a total of 4 in the House of Representatives and gaining 6 seats in the Senate, making 12 total seats. It's also worth mentioning their gains in most state and territory elections, excluding WA since then. Over the last few years, the Greens have strongly advocated for a shift to renewable energies and have successfully shut down a variety of coal and gas projects. During COVID-19, the party also achieved greater renters' rights and managed to secure a ban on evictions and rent increases in Victoria. They've also pushed for the amendment of so-called out-of-date legislation, such as removing begging from being a crime in Tasmania. The Greens have also seen an uptick in support due to more and more Australians growing frustrated and tired with the two-party system. Earlier in the year, the Greens were able to pick up 3 seats in the Tasmanian state election. This is both due to an unpopular Liberal government and the expansion of the parliament. They also, for the first time, gained a seat in the Northern Territory general elections. Although it is worth mentioning, the Greens struggle in WA and South Australia. Despite this, the Australian Greens face significant challenges ahead for the 2025 federal election. For starters, the Greens have allegedly focused more of their attention on international issues, such as the Israel-Gaza conflict, which both Labor and the Coalition have accused the Greens of driving division and damaging social cohesion within the nation. This attack by the major parties, as well as news outlets, has likely highlighted the Greens to be more violent and radical. The Greens' so-called radical agenda has pushed some support away from the party, while also sparking reactions from the Conservative establishment. Secondly, voters, especially swing voters, believe that some of the most important issues right now is the cost of living, inflation, and the housing crisis, rather than environmental issues. Although it is worth mentioning, in Mission Australia's Youth Survey report in 2024, some of the issues of greatest concern to Gen Z were the environment, with 34% voting for that, quality and discrimination, 31%, and with economic matters ranking third at 31%. Another worrying sign for the Greens is that they've faced consecutive electoral defeats in both Queensland and ACT elections in the late part of 2024, losing 1 seat in Queensland and 2 in the Australian Capital Territory, likely due to a combination of the aforementioned issues above and lack of action for local issues. And lastly, some internal issues regarding bullying and sexual assault allegations, and former senators such as Lydia Thorpe have brought the party into further disrepute. However, if the Greens are able to overcome these challenges, they're likely set to play a major role in the election. Taking all of this into account, the Greens are definitely in an uncertain situation, with both very large swings of support and losses to the party. And as a result, there are likely 3 election outcomes for the Greens. The most desirable of these outcomes is a hung parliament between Labor and the Coalition, making the Greens a sort of kingmaker, allowing one party to form government in exchange for either policies and amendment guarantees ministerial positions, or political concessions. This would likely be the best case scenario for the Greens, and especially if they manage to gain seats in the House and expand in the Senate. A second but possible option is a highly divided parliament, where the major parties lose further margins to both independents and minor parties. While less ideal than before, it's still likely to put the Greens in a powerful position to form government, although this scenario could lead to instability and less popular support, especially if the government proves to be an unsuccessful one. A third but unlikely scenario is that the Greens remain on the crossbench due to being bypassed by a majority government or a small confidence and supply agreement between select independents. This would probably be the worst outcome for the party, as they'd have limited opportunity to enact their policies unless it was through the Senate through amendments. Regardless of the potential scenarios in the House, Australia's upper house, the Senate, is where Australia's minor parties have more of a voice. And even if the Greens fail to govern in coalition with Labor, they're likely to maintain leverage in the Senate, either holding onto their seats or expanding the seats potentially. Overall, it's certain that the upcoming election will be like no other, and with the polls tight in both the two-party preferred and primary vote, it's uncertain exactly who will be forming government. But one thing is for certain. Thought Digest Media is here to stay, and we'll be making sure to keep an eye on things as the election draws closer and closer. Thank you for watching this video. If you'd like to support our channel, consider subscribing and ringing the bell so that you can stay informed and keep in the loop regarding the big news throughout the world. We've also just released our monthly newsletter, Snapshots, which covers all major news around the world in a nice, neat package, free for you to access, available on our website, www.thoughtdigestmedia.com.au/snapshots-newsletter. Thank you for watching again, and I'll see you in the next video.